This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, leading the league in podcasting entertainment.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Onside Kick. My name is Ricky Widmer, and this is the part where I usually say, and as always, I'm joined by the Mark Weber.
Dub the Mies.
However, I'm not here with Mark. That was not Mark's voice you heard. I am here with Sean Anderson.
Hello.
And Brandon Swanson.
What's going on?
And guys, Mark couldn't be here this week, so thank you guys for stepping onto the Onside Kick. This is actually the same team we had when we did the AFC North divisional preview.
That's very interesting. That's a fun fact right there. That's
That is
a fun fact. And I wouldn't be on this if I knew you were going to start it with what's up, what's up.
Well, you don't like the what's up. I'm trying something
not
new here.
I think it's I hate it. I think that's pretty much what it is.
I'm trying something new here. I'm trying to start
bad.
podcasts off a little bit differently, but we got a jam-packed show for you guys. Going to be talking some football, and we got to talk about the Seattle Seahawks. Are they done? We're going to look at the Patriots and the Jimmy Garoppolo injury, and then basically, is Jay Cutler the worst quarterback in football? And yes, Mike Rankin heard that and has now been added to suicide watch at MVP.
And all of our fans are just like, thank God they finally came around. So.
Thank God they came around.
Well,
but
maybe
we'll
you'll
see. And if you're mad that we're talking Bears, I'll get to that when we get to the Jay Cutler segment. Let's start with these Seattle Seahawks, though, because this is a team that lost to the Rams, and they didn't even score an offensive touchdown. This is the first time that this team hasn't scored a touchdown since 2012. It has been 4 years since this team has been this bad. And what's even worse, they lost to the Rams, who got shut out by the Niners, a team that the Seahawks are going to play this week.
Yeah, but you talk about like how bad they've been. They're 1-1. They started off this season better than they did last season, at least from a record.
Touchdown though.
Oh my God, they didn't score a touchdown. They went up against a good Rams defense. The Rams don't have a bad defense, and Russell Wilson was injured.
Here's the thing. Yes, Russell Wilson was injured, but I'm gonna throw this out there. Was it because of how good the defense for the Rams was, or how bad the offensive line for the Seahawks is?
A mixture of both, because we saw that last year of how poorly the Seahawks offensive line was. We saw that Russell Wilson was constantly pressured, and I mean, this kind of reminds me a lot of last season as well for the Seahawks. They started off 0-2, lost to the Rams in opening weekend, and I just think that they're kind of a slow starting team, and we've shown that they've shown that in the past couple of years. But I don't think this is a worrisome sign. I think it's definitely not a good sign when you lose to the Rams after how bad they did look in Week 1. But the fact that they did come back to it, they did bounce back after last year after they did lose 2 straight to open up the season. I think it shouldn't be too worrisome for them. I think really the worrisome thing is how tough their schedule is in the second half, though.
I think for Seattle, I don't think you want to jump out too quickly and say, oh my gosh, the season's lost, it's going to be horrible. Mm-hmm. You don't want to do that, but let me tell you, you get a game against the 49ers underneath your belt and you still don't play well, then you've played back-to-back weeks against divisional foes. You know that both of those teams aren't as good as the Arizona Cardinals. So then you have to start to worry. But I think for Seattle, right now, they're feeling the effect of Thomas Rawls is not the Thomas Rawls we saw last year. Mm-hmm. Last year, people forgot about Marshawn Lynch. Oh, Thomas Rawls is going to be the next guy. Oh, we don't need Marshawn Lynch. We got Thomas Rawls. He got hurt. He didn't even play well in Week 1. I think that it's for this team right now. It's going to be really important for them to try and get it back on track, try and establish that ground game, but at the same time, be able to open up the passing game, and that's going to start at the offensive line. And I think that Russell Wilson, especially with him being a little hobbled up and not being able to be as mobile as he'd like to be, I think that that's part of it. The offensive line has to do a better job. They have to do a better job of finding some holes for the running backs, whoever it is, whether it's going to be Thomas Rawls, whether it's going to be Christine, or Kristen Michael. I'm really not sure who it is. But I think that if it's them or if it's Russell Wilson having time to be able to throw it down the field, the offensive line has got to be better.
And also, I mean, just it's not even like Russell Wilson getting going or Christian Michael getting going and getting a balanced attack going. It's literally just getting anything going. I mean, Wilson
it's
has
getting back to Seahawk football.
Anything, but I mean, even if they become a passing team, it's anything just to get touchdowns going. Because I mean, they barely scored in the Miami game as well because that was like a 31-second touchdown where Russell threw it to Baldwin. So I think it's more about just getting something going for this offense.
And the one thing you say, like, you say when you're like, oh, if they become a passing team, I think of that and go, no, don't do, like, that to me is...
I'm just saying to get going. I'm not saying...
Don't change your identity, because this team has been two things. It's been a run team. Yes, you've had Marshawn Lynch, so it's easy when you've got beast mode out there to just run it down the throats and be physical. But also, Russell Wilson's mobility has helped, and if he's hobbled on that ankle... that means that offensive line has to be better, and they're just not giving. The Seahawks' biggest problem isn't that the offensive line isn't good enough. It's that they're not paying their offensive line enough. They're only $9 million spent out between those linemen, and the next highest on any NFL team is $13 million.
No, that's a good point. And obviously, you want to be protecting your assets. You want to be opening up the running game. You want to be protecting Russell Wilson back there. But I'm not saying change your identity. I'm just saying against San Francisco, against New York, get points in any way you can get them. If it's in the passing game, if you have to turn into going into 5 wide sets and just getting something going, just attacking what's working is really the thing. Is getting something to work, so then you can go back to that same identity and just get confidence back in that offensive line and in that offense in general.
But is that going to work if Russell Wilson can't be mobile? That's the big question.
I mean, we've seen that Russell Wilson is still a good passer. I mean, he obviously...
Well, I'm not saying his passing ability.
No,
I'm saying the one thing that Russell Wilson has kind of lived on is his mobility, running around the backfield, making a play out of nothing. If he's hurt by this ankle, that mobility is going to be down.
What I'm saying is nothing's working. So you have to find something that is working. That's the point I'm trying to make. Nothing has been working. You've scored 1 touchdown in the past two games. And, I mean, these aren't bad defenses as well. I mean, Miami's got a tenacious front line with Sue and Wake. They also went up against Los Angeles, who has Aaron Donald, fantastic, good linebackers. They have Mark Barron as well, and their corners and safeties aren't bad. But, looking at those two defenses, you're not going to get any break, really, with the San Francisco defense as well.
And, Brandon, I'm going to throw this your way. I am very nervous. I'm not a Seahawk fan, but if I was, I'd be very nervous about this 49er team coming in, because I think back to week 1, a divisional game. Yes, it was the Rams. Yes, the Rams looked horrible, but this defense for San Fran looked good. My offensive line has not been good so far this year. Should Seahawk fans be worried about the Niners?
I think that they shouldn't take them lightly, and I say that because San Francisco actually was able to put up some decent points on Carolina. Carolina was able to pull away at the end. I mean, that game, for the most part, really never was in question. But San Francisco was able to get it within, I think, a score at one point, which was some point middle of the fourth quarter. That seemed like a game that just was not ending on Sunday, the Carolina Panthers-San Francisco game. But I don't think that the Seahawks are in trouble yet. I think, though, if you take a look at it, their defense has given up 12 points and 9 points. You should win those games when you give up 12 points and 9 points. The defense isn't the problem. The defense right now is the lone bright spot, I think. Everything else is focused on the offense. We have to look at last year, though. The Seahawks did start off 0-2, Sean. They did start off 0-2. But in week 1, the Seahawks scored 31 points, and they lost. In week 2, they scored 17 points, and they lost. In the first 2 weeks of the season, it was, what's going on? Where's this defense? This defense is so good. Where's the 12th man and blah, 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 blah. Within the first 2 weeks, they were both on the road. But it was not the offense last year to start off the season. It was, why can't we play defense? This year, it's the complete opposite. They got it figured out against the Bears. And of course, who doesn't get it figured out against the Bears? It's like when a team figures it out against the White Sox.
That was Jimmy Clausen-led Bears as well.
Doesn't matter. It was the Bears.
That was awful.
But I think that right now, the Seattle Seahawks, they're not... The reason why people are worrying is because they're not making the big plays. We're not seeing the big plays. I think a lot of people thought that they would pick up right where they left off last year. Russell Wilson was still going to be completely out of his mind crazy good with how well he was playing and the connection that he had with Doug Baldwin, who fucked me in my fantasy league last year. Thanks again, Dougie. But I think that that is what people are worried about, is that they're not seeing that, so they all automatically assume, oh, we're not going to be good. This isn't going to be good. This is not good.
And it doesn't help when he's injured.
But people can't overreact either, and that's what I'm trying not to do, is not overreact. I need to see what they do against San Francisco, and if it's not a good turnout there, then we can maybe have some cause for concern.
And I agree with Brandon. I mean, really, if you look at it, it's nothing to worry about yet, but if you go and lose against San Francisco, then obviously the worrying is going to be ramped up. And then if you lose against New York, that's just going to be, basically, level 10, worrying right there. And then you have a bye week and kind of relax. But then after that, I mean, you go play Atlanta, New Orleans, and Buffalo, and Philly and Tampa as well. And those teams were teams that didn't make the playoffs, but also you have Arizona twice in that run. You have New England at New England. You have Carolina. You have Green Bay. You have even Los Angeles, who's beat them 3 times in a row now. So, I mean, there's still a tough second half of that schedule. And by week 5, you're either hoping that Russell Wilson has figured it out and is healthier, or at least this running game can take some load off of that. And that defense is still, being the same tenacious defense that we've seen from the Seahawks.
What I'm thinking is, Brandon, I do agree with you. Don't overreact, even though I'm an overreactor. And that's like,
we know that.
Like I said, if I was a Seahawks fan, I'd be worried because I kind of
there's a difference. Let me tell you really quick. You can be worried and not overreact. They're different.
Well, the reason why I'd be worried is because we are seeing from this team, to me, kind of the repercussions of when you don't invest in an offensive line. They have chosen to invest in the past in key defensive pieces, which I'm not saying they shouldn't have. The defense was originally how they made their money. When you have Richard Sherman, when you have Cam Chancellor, when you have Earl Thomas, you've got to invest in those players. When you have a Russell Wilson, you got to invest in him too. However, you let guys like the Russell Okung contract, you let him walk. He's now in Denver. You go ahead and say, hey, you know what? We're going to trade Max Unger to the Saints for Jimmy Graham, and Jimmy Graham's come in and hasn't really been what everyone's expected. He hasn't been the Jimmy Graham that he was in New Orleans. So you're kind of trading away offensive line pieces. You're letting offensive line pieces walk, and now you're like, hey, you know what? We realized if we don't have that tough running and Russell Wilson's mobility, we could be in trouble offensively.
Okay, well, that just makes sense. I mean, if you don't have a running game, your quarterback's not able to do what he's doing consistently. I mean, that's going to make any team worrying. But the thing last year is they didn't have Unger last year, and Okung, I was on the team, but I don't think that offensive line was still terrible with him. So I mean, they didn't invest last year, and they still made the playoffs. They still win up against Carolina in the second round.
I'm saying it looks like this offensive line looks worse than it did last year.
That offensive line did not look good. So at all. I mean, this is like, it's really going from like a D- to an F. I mean, it's definitely a downgrade, but I mean, they still survived last year without a good offensive line. They survived with a terrible offensive line last year, but they were able to get it together. And I still trust Pete Carroll as a head coach. Pete Carroll has proven that he can be an NFL head coach. I mean, he's taken the Seahawks team from, kind of, an old aging Matt Hasselbeck and Sean Alexander, and that team kind of going towards the bottom end of the NFC, and then just revamping them completely and bringing them back basically from the dead. And this Seahawks team has looked fantastic. I just think that it's more of this team needs time to gel, and they saw that prove that last year. And unless they get into a deep hole like a 1-5 hole, I'm not going to be too worried. Remember, the Chiefs made the playoffs last year, and they started the season 0-6. So it's obviously there's things that are worrying about this season, but I don't think this is going to be. I don't think it's troubling for the Seahawks yet, because I mean it's still week 2.
I think that the thing that you need to look at for the Seahawks right now, Thomas Rawls, not completely healthy. He didn't start in week 1. He was coming back from an ankle injury. Tyler Lockett, he injured his knee, missed most of the game this past Sunday. Rawls missed most of the game this past Sunday. Baldwin, been battling back spasms, gonna get an MRI on his knee. Jimmy Graham, he's been brought back in a really slow way because of his off-season knee surgery. I mean, everybody is hurt for the Seahawks. They are hurt, and that is not helping. That is not helping at all. And I think that when you look at the guys, it's injuries to your big spots. It's injuries to your running back. It's injuries to your top wide receiver. You have Russell Wilson, who's a little gimped up with his ankle. You're injured. You're hurt right now. And you will get healthy. But right now, you got to work with what you got. And the Seahawks are not going to explode on offense right now. Not with these injuries. I don't think so. I think that they're going to have to continue to lean on their defense to try and keep points off the board by the opposing team. And offensively, they're going to have to try and get as much as they can. And does that mean that they are going to have to try and, settle for field goals sometimes? Yeah, I think that these next couple of weeks they may have to settle more for field goals,
which you wouldn't have a problem with because you have Hauschka on your team.
I do. But what I'm saying is that right now that Seattle may just have to understand that we may not be able to get into the end zone. We just have to settle for the points right now instead of trying to go for it on fourth down or do this or do that and put us in a worse spot. Then we don't even get points.
And another thing, looking at this defense, this defense is obviously tenacious. They're obviously able to shut down quarterbacks. We look at the Panthers and last year, obviously they had a great running game, but looking at that defense, that defense was
beast mode.
That defense was getting, no, I'm talking about the Panthers.
No, the Panthers.
Panthers were able to get points from their defense. You look at the in weeks 3 and 4, you're going up against Ryan Fitzpatrick, who's thrown the most interceptions since 2010. We'll get to that later. But if you're able to turn those interceptions into pick six, or you're able to force fumbles from Matt Forte, obviously they're going to be out without Brandon Marshall, we think, at least, because that leg injury was nasty.
They won't be. And then I already put a call into him, told him he's got to play.
Gotcha. Brandon Marshall, great friend of the show. But week 3, San Francisco, Blaine Gabbert is still Blaine Gabbert. I know he's been in the past 8 games, he's better than Aaron Rodgers, but he's
the offenses for these teams you're not worried about because the Seahawk defenses, you're hoping that they're going to stand their ground.
That's what I'm saying is get turnovers and turn those into points so you can give your offense a break, because we haven't seen that in week 1 and 2, and that's really what they need to do.
It's like I say, and I'm going to say, and this is, you're probably going to be like, wow, Ricky actually said something nice about the Broncos this year, but it's like the Broncos. Why are the Broncos 2-0 right now? Because they don't need Trevor Siemian to do anything special and throw the ball down the field. Just let the defense get points.
Like they did last year. They didn't need Peyton Manning to throw the ball down the field or Brock.
But guess what? Is that
eventually you may need your quarterback to make a play, though.
But here's the thing, is that Trevor Siemian has been making some plays. He has better.
No, I'm saying long touchdown plays.
I am saying right now, Trevor Siemian is having longer plays than Russell Wilson has. Russell Wilson may have had a couple of bigger passing plays, but Trevor Siemian has more guys out there. His guys, Emmanuel Sanders and Demaryius Thomas, are going to make more plays for him than Russell Wilson's guys are going to make for him.
But you're wrong, because Ricky's always right. Don't worry. Trevor Siemian sucks. He's the worst quarterback in the NFL, according to Ricky.
I was trying to give the Broncos some credit, and Brandon just yelled at me.
Well, what he's saying is Trevor Siemian.
I didn't yell at you. But is what you're saying?
What I was saying is I'm talking when I say quarterback needs to make some plays, I mean get into the end zone. Trevor Siemian has not been able to get in the end zone. Well, his team has. He hasn't had a touchdown pass yet this season. That's what I'm saying.
Not true. Didn't he throw one to C.J. Anderson in week 1? I'm pretty sure he was one touchdown and 2 interceptions.
I believe that was a run.
I think you should stack your show.
I
think you're completely wrong. I think that was a touchdown counted for C.J. Anderson. It was a 33-yard receiving touchdown.
But either way, so what the point that I was trying to make, though, too, is that Trevor Siemian has better people around him right now. He has better talent around him,
on the offensive side.
On the offensive side, yes. And I think that if you look at both of the defenses, the Denver Broncos defense is solid. I think that for the Seattle Seahawks defense, their defense is also solid. They give up 10 points in week 1. They give up 9 points in week 2. You should be able to win those games.
And Sean, you were right. He did have a touchdown.
I know it was.
However, one touchdown.
Okay, one touchdown, but then again, you just need him to be serviceable. Last year, Peyton Manning, one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, sucked. He sucked.
This is not going to. I'm not letting this get into a Trevor Siemian conversation.
Hold on, real quick. Let me finish.
It's not going to.
It's not going to. Trevor Siemian just needs to be serviceable for this Broncos team because that defense could get them points. Russell Wilson has proven that he is not just serviceable, that he is a good quarterback. So, I mean, even
he can make things out of nothing when he's
healthy. So that Seattle defense, if they can turn those if turnovers into points and at least put them into good field position by, at least forcing that offense to make mistakes, then that offense doesn't need to be relied on that much. They can just go a short distance or rely on Hauschka, like Brandon was bringing up. With a quarterback that is that good as Russell Wilson, you don't need to rely on your defense as much. But now with him banged up and with a poor offensive line, you're definitely going to need to help and rely on your defense.
And this has gone on too long. We got to get into other stuff. The last thing I want to ask you guys to wrap this up, it's what we called this segment on YouTube. Are the Seahawks in trouble? Are they done?
No, not at all. It's week 3.
Brandon?
If they don't play well against San Francisco, they're in trouble.
Well, that is going to do it. Brandon,
I was just going to say, I didn't want to lead you into a thing where you felt like you were bashing Trevor Siemian. Hold on. I know you weren't. I'm just saying that right now, Trevor Siemian...
It's got more pieces.
He's got a lot more pieces around him. I mean, if Russell Wilson was completely healthy, if all of his pieces around him were completely healthy, he's just fine. We're not even having this discussion. But it's because of the injuries that are hurting him. But Trevor Siemian has really good pieces around him right now, and they're going to help to make him really adjust to this starting role.
Which I also want to say, this is kind of onside kick history for you. 2 years ago, we had a segment of what's wrong with the Seahawks. Oh, that's right. They went on to play for a Super Bowl either that year or the year after.
And I'm guessing last year you guys at least talked about the Seahawks going 0-2, and they're probably like, oh wait, they made it to the.
I don't think we did last year. I do know we had 2 years ago because it was one of the last podcasts Dave was on before he made his return 2 years later, which was this year. It was what is wrong with the Seattle Seahawks, and then they went to play for the Super Bowl against your New England Patriots. Well, your Tom Brady's.
Oh, that was a great year.
Because you're a Tom Brady fan.
That was a great year.
But you guys let us know what you guys think about the Seahawks. What do you see that's troubling to you? Are they in trouble? Are they done? Let us know.